Good morning, everybody. Hey, so we're surrounded by all kinds of beautiful things that you can take home today if you want. So these paintings were all by Suki, and the church is going to keep these three middle ones with the yellow with the circles, and all the rest of them can be yours if you see one that you want to take home. It is yours. And if you want it, but you can't take it this afternoon, there are Post-it notes over there. I have to make myself say Post-it. I usually say stickies. There's stickies over there and a pen. So, I've got Suzanne's name on this one that she's going to take. So you can claim them even if you can't take it today. And then in the hallway, there are plants. I think they're all tomato plants or mostly tomato plants, and those can be yours for a love offering. I think, is there a sign up now with suggested love offerings on the different sizes? And then further down the hall, you'll notice that there are a bunch of books, and some of those were Suki's books, and a lot just came out of storage where they had been put and then forgotten about, literally until maybe a month or 2 months ago. And I've been here for over 5 years. I didn't know we had stuff in a storage unit. So there are books that I think were mostly or a lot Reverend Moses, who used to attend here. So there are lots of books down the hall as well. And if you want to give a love offering for any of those, there's a box there that you can do that as well. Or if you're like, well, I want this, but I don't have any cash to give, you can take it. So lots of cool, beautiful things that can be yours. All right. Let's take this time to pray in together. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, or find something to put a soft gaze on. Turning within, recognizing that we turn within because that is the home of our spirit. That is the home of God. On this Father's Day, that is the home of the Father, Mother, the Mother, Father, the creator of us, and the creative outlet that we use as we co-create. And so we take this time to proclaim that we are co-creating a marvelous service right here and right now because we choose it. And with that, we let it be well. We let it be so. And so it is, and amen. All right, so I'm going to invite you to stand either physically or spiritually, and Maria's going to lead you in the song.
All right, and Chris is going to have the words up. Am I strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come with living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork of the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Will I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Will I have the health of mind and body to live a life of grace and wholeness? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its meaning. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its meaning. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Thank you all for joining me in that song. Good morning and welcome home to Unity in Greensboro. I'm going to invite you to take a look at a neighbor and repeat after me. And for those of you watching us at home, know that we're saying this to you as well. And we invite you to write this in the comments as we share this commentary together. Good morning.
Good morning.
I love you this morning.
I love you this morning.
And I sure do appreciate you being here.
Yes, I sure do appreciate you being here.
That's so fun. Again, for those of you watching us at home, please help us spread this loving community, spiritual community, by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing to all of our pages and social media. Now, join me in reading the affirmations for June together. God is love, light, refuge, and strength, and so am I. My imagination plays a vital role in turning my thoughts into things. And I guess now Wally's up. Wally up.
All right. So today is Father's Day. And, there are 3 days of year that people who don't tend to go to church go to church. Today's not one of them. Mother's Day is, but Father's Day. Anyway, but we want to take this time. And look, but as we start this, we want to acknowledge that that some of us got blessed with really positive parent experiences, and many don't have those feelings. And so this is a time to recognize fathers. But that doesn't mean the biological person. If your father figure's name is Julie, then that's the father figure. So I first want to take the time to acknowledge any fathers that are in the room. And if we have any fathers that are watching online, we ask you to please acknowledge yourself. Type something in so that we can acknowledge you. We don't know you're online until you say that you're online. We don't have any, like tracking devices. So if we did, we would be asking you for donations more often. Please, if you're online, please type it in. And but if you're in the room and you are a father, we ask you to either stand or raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you with applause. Hooray, hooray, and thank you all for being you. Now, we started this a few years ago, and it's I don't like to do the same thing all the time. And so I've been saying, I probably need to come up with something different. But this still feels meaningful, and we do it every Mother's Day and Father's Day. So I'm going to go around the room with the microphone, and I'm going to invite you to speak just the first name. If you've got more than one, you can say what you need to say. But this is just speaking the name. There's power in speaking the name. And whether your father or father figure is alive and well somewhere on the planet or has made their transition, I believe the spirit of them is here in this room because we carry all of our loved ones with us all the time. And so now is that time when we will acknowledge them. So I'm going to go around and invite us to speak his name. And if you're online, we ask you to type in those names because we want to acknowledge them in the room and virtually. And so for myself, I say Gray.
George, Dean, and Victor.
Dean,
David R. and Tom.
Samuel Hauser, who is not with us anymore, but he is here, and he has always been my hero.
John Galloway.
Joseph Raymond.
My daddy, Herman.
Dale and Herbert.
Luke.
Truth.
Jasper Pierce.
94-year-old Alex.
Harry.
Jerry.
Ernest.
Charles.
Ray.
Stuart.
Andy.
Robert.
Walter lived to 101.
Bob.
Joe.
I have a bunch. Robert, Bill, and Thomas.
David and Bud.
We thank all you fathers. We thank you for what you've given, and we thank you for helping bring life forward. And so it is. And so now is our time to keep that blessing that we acknowledged in the room and give it to our youth as we release them into their own space down the hall. So I invite you to put your hands together and rub them, get that good energy flowing, and then direct it towards the door. And as we all say together, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ within you. And so it is. And let me get this for the prayer list names. So now's our time where we go into prayer and meditation, and we recognize people who have asked to be put on our prayer list so that we can collectively work. Sure. We're going to read the names. I'm going to give it to Marie and let her read them.
Thomas Pitts. Ivy. Robert Jones. Helen.
Like to include them all. So now if there's a name that's not already on the prayer list, I invite you, in fact, to think of someone that you just want to send a blessing out for. They don't have to have anything going wrong. You know, it's just someone that you want to include blessings to as we go into this time of prayer. And every Sunday before service, this prayer box is on the table in the back with slips where you can write out your prayer request. And then we ask on there, if you want to add people to the prayer list, that you check a box to let us know you want us to publicly speak the name, because sometimes people want their stuff done, quietly. So we want to make sure of that. Same thing if you're out in the virtual world, you can email us at the info@unityingreensboro.org and go that way. During the week, we invite you to reach out to Silent Unity as well at Unity Village. So let's take this time and go into prayer and meditation together now. touching space within where the very best of ourselves lives, where the very best of ourselves that we put out into the world comes from. And recognizing that God is good all the time. And that we want to acknowledge that good that is within us, that is flowing through us and to us and for us and as us. And as we recognize it, we now have it to offer out to our loved ones, to our neighbors, to just places on the planet that we believe could use some extra blessing. To people that we want to say thank you to. To people we want to apologize to. In all those places, we go within, and then we bring out the good. As we pray for people who have asked for prayer work, we invite each person here to think of someone that you would like to send love and affirmative prayer to, recognizing that they are one with God, that everything is already all right because their spirit is whole, perfect, and complete. And as we recognize all those beings that are either in the room or across the planet, we add to that list Jean Halstead, Emily Hyatt and family, Bobby Reebok, Lynette Solvey, Iris Solvey, and Sandy Spivey. Together, let us affirm that these loved ones are whole, perfect, and complete. We are standing with them knowing that God is already actively working in partnership with each person to grow through the appearance of challenges, because we know that wherever we are, God is. And together all is well. And so it is, and amen.
Ooh, I was so in the moment that I forgot I was even here and had responsibilities today. So I have the great pleasure of introducing our very own Sandy Hemenway. Sandy began playing piano at the Hamilton Baptist Church at the age of 11. Like so many do, he drifted away from church in his 20s. While attending UNC, studying broadcasting, and subsequently at NC State, studying computer programming. Around 2000, he was drawn to Unity Church of the Triangle, where he not only reconnected with God, but also with his musical gifts, and began writing New Thought, or posse music. May 2021, Sandy released his second CD, 95 Seconds of Normal, which is available now. He is still playing regularly at a number of New Thought churches across North Carolina. Sammy Hemenway.
Thank you. So the talk topic today is I think, and I was thinking about what I've been thinking about, and it's probably the thing everybody has been thinking about, which is what's going on in the world. It's both Pride Month, and with everything going on, this Daniel Nahmod song came to me, and it's like, I think this is the perfect song for this time. It's called Just Like Me. You had to be strong for so long. You don't remember who you are. But when I see you, I see myself too. I know the child hidden in your heart. You're only human like me. You're lonely sometimes like me. You're longing for love like me. You're just like me. I know the ones who most hurt you are those you trusted most of all. But to forgive them is to live again and heal the heart of that child so small. You're only human like me. You're lonely sometimes like me. You're longing for love like me. You're just like me. We cry for a safe place, a quiet space to be, where a soul shows its true face, where love flies free. You're only human like me. You're lonely sometime like me. You're longing for love like me. You're just like me. I understand. You're just like me.
Just taking time to drink that in, to pay attention to how it feels, to recognize the truth in it for ourselves and everyone who surrounds us. All of them, even the ones you don't like. Sometimes especially the ones you don't like, right? There's great comfort in all of that for me. We're looking at, for 5 Sundays, the Unity 5 principles. And I've taken as the titles of them the way that they teach them in Unity Youth. So they've like knocked it down to just 2 words. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I live. And so that's the title of all 5 Sundays in June. And today is the I think. And Chris, can you give me the next slide, and then you can just leave that one up too. So today we're looking at principle number 3. Our thoughts are our creative power. Whatever we persistently focus our thoughts and feelings upon manifest in our lives. That was like new information to me in so many ways when I came into Unity, or really when I came into New Thought. Like I started getting some of this information reading some Louise Hay books, and Louise was New Thought, but she was more religious science and Unity. But that's where I first started really getting this information. And it's really the information, like I say all the time, my one of my favorite sayings now, and certainly my first piece of life-changing, mind-blowing information was when I read in one of Louise's books, your opinion of me is none of my business, right? That because, you know, I was a little gay boy in a small town in North Carolina growing up, and then I was in the theater, and then I became a theater major where you're auditioning to try and get other people to like you enough to cast you in this or to think of you this way. And so you're constantly, right? Like everybody's already trying to do that in some way or another of like, I want to be seen in this light. I want my friends to think of me this way. I want, right? And here's the thing that I learned was if you want someone else to think of you in some way, then start acting in that way. And then just be consistent. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be, right? Because that is about the thinking process. If I'm running around making your opinion of me my business, then an awful lot of the time, don't feel so good, right? It just, you know, because if what holds me up, right? If what is going to really be that substance, my support, is your opinion of me, at some point I'm going to say something you don't like, right? I've done that enough in my life, I know for sure, right? And most of you have too, right? At some point, there's something that we just see differently than other people who we love. And do we love them, or do we love their opinions only when they match ours, right? And so that's where the saying that I picked up from Reverend Della was, you've got to know that you know what you know. And that sounds like it's just this thing, but all of those words really mean something. You have to know that you know what you know. So that when you know, and here's the important piece of that, is the way that you know whatever it is that you know is with a perspective of the life experience that you've had up until this moment. So you and I may hold very similar beliefs, and we probably have slightly different reasons that we connect to it, that it holds strong and true for us. We both believe it, but we probably believe it for at least slightly different reasons. And all that's okay, right? If we all needed to think and act and speak and do exactly the same, God could have stopped with Adam, right? We just needed one in that case, right? So I believe that there's a reason for all the different parts of us active and all of that. And because I believe it, because that's what I think, then that becomes true for me. But I'll give you, if somebody's like, well, no, there's some people that definitely think and do and things that I'm completely opposed to, and they should just vanish, right? And here's the reason why I don't believe that's true. Let's go to cooking. Try and cook a one-ingredient dish. If boiling water is included, you're screwed, right? Because now that's all you get. It's like, Oh, no, I was boiling the water then to add something, but that's another ingredient. See, that's a different thing than the one thing. Now we know that adding that extra thing in there will make it taste a little better than just the boiling water on its own. At least let's get it to a broth for that. Probably going to want to add some more stuff to that too, right? We were talking earlier, Maria was talking about like a keto cornbread recipe that then she added some onions to, and it took it to another level. It's by adding all those extra pieces that makes it all beautiful, that makes it taste better, right? I was out at Winston-Salem Pride yesterday for a while, and look, the vast majority of the people that were there, I have a lot in common with. You know, we're part of an alphabet group of people, as they call us, you know, right? And I finally learned, I think, what all the letters stand for. If you need to know, ask me, and if I don't know, we'll Google it together and see what the AI tells us, because that's what you get now on Google. But, like, there are a lot of people wearing things that I would never wear. There was one person in this red outfit that I thought was beautiful, but I also felt hot looking at it, right? And I'm like, I would just die if I wore that. But I'm certainly glad that they were there in it, because they added vibrancy to the environment I was walking around in. Like, that's one of the options of how we think matters. I could have said, well, that's just awful. Like, I don't know why anybody would wear that on a summer day when it's hot outside. I mean, it's making me uncomfortable that they've got it on. Well, that was slightly true. I did have a moment of, oh, I'm hot now and I'm wearing, shorts. So what would I do in that, right? If that's where I stopped and said they shouldn't wear it because I'm uncomfortable, well, that's just stupid, right? Where I got to was like, I'm glad that they're comfortable or willing to be uncomfortable in it, because I love pops of color everywhere, and that is color, right? And so I found a place of gratitude within it. There are people that I think differently of on a whole group of topics, but if I can get to a place of finding gratitude, either of, well, I'm glad that I live with this belief, or, well, I'm glad that somebody is bringing up something different in some way, right? So I want to invite us all to say together, but personalize this. So turn all the hours into I or my, so that we would say, my thoughts are my creative power. Whatever I persistently focus my thoughts and feelings upon manifest in my life. That gets to a level of personal responsibility that frankly is uncomfortable. It's just easier when bad things are somebody else's fault, right? Like, it's like, well, I didn't do that. So-and-so said that. Okay, well, did you retell it? Because the second you retold it, you said it too. Right? It's like, well, like I forget what I brought it up for recently, or some other topic, but when folks come in and say, look, you didn't hear this from me, but stop right now so that statement will remain true, please. Because if you shouldn't be saying it, then don't say it to me. Like, but that's me taking my personal responsibility and being like, look, if I don't need to know this, if I'm not supposed to repeat this, like, ignorance is bliss. Now, if you just walk up and say, you're ignorant, that'll probably piss me off. But I say it for myself all the time. There are plenty of things that, like, it's just easier for me not to know about. I was talking to my nephew about the stock market this past week, and I was like, look, when I start hearing in the news that it's doing the drop down, like, I just stop looking at it, right? Because I know the concept of investing and that sort of thing, that they're just numbers on paper until you cash stuff out, right? So when you're like, oh, the stock market's dropped, I've lost this much money. Did you cash it out? No, then you haven't lost any money yet. you will lose the money if you cash it out. Now you're going to get it at the lower value than what it once was, right? So for me to not worry, because I know that I don't want to cash out in that time, but if I look at it and I see it dropping to a level that's uncomfortable for me, I'm going to want to, right? Or I'm going to worry about it. And now I've got this uncomfortable feeling that I wouldn't have had if I just stayed out of it, right? My other example of that is several years ago, I happened to be on the side of town in Winston-Salem where my aunt used to live. And I was like, I'm going to drive by her old house and see what they've done. Now, as I drove into the neighborhood, I had a thought saying, you don't really have any business over here. And I'm like, well, I'm already here. I might as well drive down. So I drove down, and they had done some things to that house. They had pulled out some azalea bushes that my cousin had given his mother for Mother's Day, that had they not wanted them when we sold them the house, I would have taken them and planted them at my house. But none of that came up. And now they were gone, and now I've seen it because I went somewhere I didn't have any business being, right? And now my feelings were hurt about something that really wasn't any of my business. We sold that house. I don't own that house anymore. I don't know the people that live in the house, right? So I turned around, and that same spirit said, I told you not to come here. And I said, and I won't be back. Thank you very much. And so, but there was an inner voice, that spirit within us that we all have that said, you don't really need to be here, that I could have stopped it short then. But I was like, now I'm already here now. I might as well go on down. And then I got my feelings hurt. And really the voice, because see, my spiritual voice speaks to me the way I speak. And so it said, I told you so, right? And don't come back, right? So anyway, here's some lines in the Bible, some verses in the Bible that coincide with this third principle. In Luke 6:38, it says, the measure you give will be the measure you get back. In Matthew 7:7, it says, ask and it will be given to you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Ask, seek, knock, expect, right? The other way that I realized that I learned way back in kindergarten, many, many years before I ever heard of Unity, that gives the same principle is I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks on you, right? That is the Unity principle. That whatever I say, I can say something that I think is going to cut you deep because you said something and now I'm going to hurt you back, right? And I might get the reaction I was looking for when I said it and think that it's done. But what this principle teaches me and what that kindergarten statement taught me was whatever words I said were planting seeds for my harvest, for my experience. That's what I ultimately ended up learning from that. So when I come across things that don't sit right with me, I can complain about it and plant seeds of complaining, or I can do something about what I see that I think should be done differently. I've talked a lot and thought a lot about Suki since her transition, especially, and Reverend Catherine said at her service the other day that she never heard her say, well, I forget what words. Anyway, complaining bad words about people, foul words about people, whatever. And I know my first thought was, well, I heard her tell me plenty of things that she wasn't happy with, right? And there was at one point, there was some kind of a plant, but like an herb or something that Miranda had brought in that I had sitting over here for ages. And Suki thought that it looked like a weed. And she told me so. And I said, well, bring another plant in to put there. And then the next week she said, I still don't like that weed. And I said, you still hadn't brought a plant to replace it, And eventually she won and I got rid of the weed. But it's to say, it's like, it's like, oh, I think something else would look better there. Great, then do something about it, in some way. The other line that I learned that says this is, what you think about, you bring about. So that's to say, what am I spending my attention thinking about? And if it's like, well, I'm thinking about these negative experiences that I'm currently experiencing. Okay, how's that working out, right? Like, is it getting rid of it by thinking about it? Are you thinking about the solution, or are you continuing to think about the problem? I've had allergies. Look, having runny noses and stuff like that when it's hot, I just think is far more uncomfortable than when it's cold outside, right? But like, I've had this allergy thing on this side for well over a week. It's much better now. But the other day when I was sitting home and I just didn't feel good, and I realized it was really hard to think about anything else except my ear hurt, and when I swallowed, my throat was hurting. And it's hard to not think about that. So I took some medicine that made me go to sleep, right? So, because I believe that when we go to sleep, we get our thinking out of the way so that our body can do what it does most naturally. Now, it's wonderful when I can do that and still walk and talk and be functional in the day. But when my body just doesn't feel well, I believe the best thing I can do is give it rest. And so I gave it some rest. No, I'm not telling you what I took. But in life, I walk around all the time, and sometimes I'm like, oh, let's talk about this other thing that's really happy and joyous and exciting to talk about. Or sometimes it's like, hey, look, I have some concerns about whatever issue. Let's talk it through. I know there's a solution, so let's talk through the concern, not to dig in on what's wrong, but let's acknowledge what the concern is so that we can find the win, because I believe there's always a win. Right? But so let's find the yes. I know the no's. I think I've been thinking about the no's long enough. I just need to talk it out loud till we can find the yes. But what I don't want to do is say, well, let's talk about everything that's wrong. We get there in this one of using our thoughts on purpose to create things to manifest by first really knowing and accepting as absolute fundamental truth the first two principles that we've already talked about. The first one being, there is only one ultimate power in the universe. That power is God, and its nature is absolute, unchanging good. Like, it's sometimes difficult to focus in on God is all there is. And then there are these things happening on the news that just don't seem very godly. But God is all there is, and we're growing through challenges. So I continue to look for the good. If I hold on to, even though these things are happening, God is good all the time, and God is all there is, then that gives me something to create off of, versus saying, oh, you see this bad thing? Yes, let's talk more about that. Let's think about that. Let's create more. Why would I want to create more of that? Let me focus in on the solution instead of the problem, right? And then getting from there to, I'm created from that absolute good. So that's who I am too. So I'm a part of that creation because that's my real DNA. That's the first bit of life for me. And so that's what I come from. I realized that as I learned New Thought principles and unity principles, that my parents, who were both born and died Baptist, right? But there was something I think about being an adult in the 60s and the 70s that still gave them a little bit of New Thought kind of stuff anyway. You know, my parents were far from hippies, and yet I think they had a little hippie in them, even though they would have rolled their eyes at the concept of that, right? But I just going to give you kind of a rundown of things that my dad had going on in his life and what I learned from it about what I teach now, even though I doubt he ever even heard of unity in his life. I didn't hear of it until several years after he passed, right? So when my dad was a kid, like second grade, and so we're talking like 19, probably 42, maybe 43, he had rheumatic fever. And in those days, a lot of kids died from that, right? He was out of school for 2 years with that. My aunt, who was younger than him, he was number 10, she was number 11 of my grandmother's children. She used to say, oh, well, Greg gets away with everything because he was sick, so we can't mess with Greg. Greg gets what he wants, right? But he came back from it. And then when he graduated high school, he was 2 years older than everybody there. And because of that, like, he had a defensive thing, right? My father's senior year, there were 3 fights the entire year in the school. And he was involved in all 3 of them, right? So he had this thing of, like, he had to prove he had been treated as the weakling as a child, and then he had to prove that strength, right? And then in somewhere around 1980, I think it was, the summer of either 79 or 80, my mother had a hysterectomy that morning. And, you know, in those days, women stayed in the hospital for several days after. You know, now you probably have one at 8 and you're home by 10. I don't know. But in those days, she was staying in the hospital. Well, that night, I was up at the neighbor's house staying with one of my friends because my dad was still getting up to go open the dry cleaners, right? My brother, who was older than me, he was 13 at the time, so he got to stay home, which was a good thing because he came rounding the corner and my father was on the floor in the hallway having a heart attack. So the same night, the same day, my mom had a hysterectomy. My dad had a massive heart attack. Now, years later, the cardiologist at Baptist looked at the records of my dad and 2 of his brothers who had both died from heart attacks. And they looked and they saw that all 3 of them had identical heart attacks. And my dad was the only one that lived through it. And I know from talking to him years later that when he was laying in the hospital that night, he said, I am not leaving Judy to raise these 2 kids by herself and run this business. She can't do all that. I'm not going anywhere, right? And so he kept going. Now then, he came to a place several years after that he needed a bypass surgery. And Baptist had turned him down. They sent him to Duke. Duke turned him down. And then he was back at Baptist for something else because he had challenges. He was in the hospital for 10 years, at least once a year. He was in the hospital every year, whether it was for his heart or for kidney stones or for something like I don't get nervous when somebody goes in the hospital. I just see that as a place you go to get better because that was the experience I had. But at this point, when he finally got his bypass surgery, the doctor was like, all right, we're going to do it. And my dad said, so you think I've got a better chance than these other doctors? He said, oh no, your chance is really low of living through this. And he's like, but your chance of living without it is 0. So we're going to go ahead and do it. And so they did the bypass surgery when everybody else said you won't live through it. And when he, like a day or 2 days later, suddenly the nurses had to go rushing. I think it was the next day. The nurses had to go rushing into the room because all the alarms had gone off. Well, that's because my father woke up and needed to go to the bathroom and just got up and went, and the heart monitor dropped out of his pajama pocket into the toilet. And, you know, and so it kept them all going. Now, years after this, my parents owned a dry cleaners, as I've said. And my dad was trying to fix something on the boiler that steamed up the whole plant, you know, and he had 200+ degree water blow out on his pants. Well, because of the bypass surgery, he had to wear these special shoes that didn't come off easy. So all that water then went down, and he ended up with 3rd-degree burns around his ankles and 2nd degree. So he ended up in the burn unit at Baptist. And while he was healing from that, he had a stroke. And so then he came home, and they were like, oh, you got to do this physical therapy, right? So then he loved to cook. So then he learned brittle, because to cook brittle, once it gets going, you can't stop stirring that sugar until you pour it out, right? It has to be in movement all the time. So he used that as physical therapy. For Christmas that year, people got almond brittle, peanut brittle, pecan brittle. You name a nut, he made some brittle out of it, and then he taught me how to brittle, and right? So he used it as I'm going to do this other thing. And it wasn't much like the story that was told about Suki this past Tuesday where she consciously died. And if you don't know that story, I'll tell you another time. But my dad kept living when people said he should die until one night while he was in the hospital, everybody else had left, and he had my mom sit down and he said, "It's time. I can't do this anymore. So let me tell you what I want in the funeral and what I want here." And 2 weeks later, he was gone, right? But he kept living through all the things he wasn't supposed to live through because he had an attitude of, "I'm not going anywhere." And it wasn't until he said, "Okay, it's time to go," that he went. Different people have different experiences. But what I learned from that was that it tied into what I started learning in Unity, which is thoughts create things. Thoughts create things. And things can be experiences, not just manifesting stuff, right? Our thoughts really create our experiences. So I invite you this week as you move forward to claim your good, to expect your good, to feel entitled to your good because it is yours. It is the very basis of who you are. So you don't have to earn your right to it. You just have to use it and live it and expect more of it to come. And the more you expect it, that expectation is a seed planting so that you get more and more harvest of that. You don't have to believe me. Just try it for yourself and see what comes up for you as you look for and expect your good this week. I love you. I bless you. I behold the Christ that absolutely is you. Thank you. So now is our time for our love offerings and our tithes. And if you give electronically, I invite you just to send some love around the room. If you're online and you don't have it set up for regularly giving, you can click the give button there and give electronically. Or, we take good old cash and checks too. So I'm going to invite you to sing along with me just a short version of Thank You, God, for Everything. And I invite you to really not just sing these words, but feel it and believe it. And think of something to thank for. Thank you, God, for everything. 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 And together let us affirm. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. And so it is. All right, I've got the first two announcements. One I don't have a slide for. It will be in Tuesday's e-blast with more information. But this coming Tuesday, so that's June 21st from 12 to 2, the All Souls Natural Burial Grounds want to honor all volunteers and family members of those volunteers. And they are looking for more volunteers, so they want to invite anyone who might want to be a volunteer to come to a luncheon that's there on the grounds. That address will be in the e-blast. I think it's 1300 Jefferson Road, but it's at on the back side of St. Barnabas Church here in Greensboro. So that's this coming Saturday from 12 to 2 if you think you might be interested in volunteering with them. And I don't know what that means, but they'll tell you while you get a free lunch. Secondly, I want to make this announcement. We've made it the last couple of Sundays. I'm looking for 3 of you who have had some kind of a story where you really feel like someone stepped in and helped you in a way that felt like the angel within them was really, that you got angelic help through another human being. through some unexpected way. A story that you can tell ideally in 5 minutes or less. I'm looking for 3 of those to be a part of our service on July the 6th. David asked last week why I picked that date. I didn't feel like going into it then. But July the 6th happens to be the birth date of Reverend Dr. Delarice Patricia Early-Lett. And she played an angel on TV. And she wrote a book called Angels Along the Way. And so I'm wanting to honor that, but not in just telling her stories, in recognizing that we all have angels along the way in our stories. If you happen to be virtual and you're further away and you know that you're, for whatever reason, because you don't feel like walking next door, or you can't drive from several states away, and you want to participate and you've got a story, if you can film it, we will play it here. Again, I'm looking for 3 stories. So if some folks want to step up and share a story, that would be incredible. Just let me know. The sooner, the better on that. And I will invite Maria up for the rest of the announcements.
Thank you, Wally. We may have a couple of faces that I haven't seen. If you are a visitor or haven't been here in a while and our ushers gave you a welcome packet, we invite you to open that up, see the comment card in there, and put your information so that we can stay in touch with you and keep you posted of all the exciting events that we have going on here. So, and today, after church, is the Kindness Project. So we invite you to stay for that. 12 Powers Healing Guided Meditation will be held next Sunday, the 22nd at 11:30 here in the UIG Sanctuary. Join Reverend Wally for a healing meditation that will guide you through your body with all 12 of your spiritual powers, their colors, and the locations they live in your body. And the following Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, with moving on.
But no, announce that it's canceled.
Okay, so on Wednesday the 25th, the Wellness Wednesday with Ellie has been canceled. And I'm sure that will be just for the 1 month. Okay, she's out of town. She's going to have fun without us. Understood. She's going to be traveling. So we'll send her on her merry way. Picnic in the park. Join us at Lake Daniel Park after church on June 29th for games, graduation celebrations, and time together. Everyone is invited to bring their own lunch. And let our chaplains pray with you for whatever you may be growing through. I'm going to invite the chaplains to raise their hand so you know who they are. Jody, Ellie, put your hand up. Jody, Ellie, and Wally. So anything that you may be growing through, there's several private locations that they can pray with you. Please seek one of them out after the service. Sandy Hemenway.
So, continuing on the theme from my first song, this is an old classic. A lot of us here are children of the 60s and 70s. And so if you know the words, feel free to sing along. It's called He Ain't Heavy. The road is long, with many a winding turn that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm strong, strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So on we go, his welfare is my concern. No burden burden is he to bear will get there. For I know he would not encumber me. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. If I'm leading at all, I'm leading with sadness that everyone's heart isn't filled with the gladness of love for one another. It's a long, long road from which there's no return. While we're on our way to there, why not share? And the load doesn't weigh me down at all. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Thank you.
So I invite you when you leave here today to think of your father or your father figure. If they're still walking around on the planet, reach out to them and let them know what's meaningful. If they've made their transition, then let them live through you by doing something that you think that they would do, as simple as sending a little text message to somebody that you're letting them know you're thinking about them, or whatever it is for you. Let that manifest through you. And next week, we will look at the fourth principle, which is the importance of our own prayer work, and it's called I Pray. And the singers are going to be me and Anita. And then, that's it. So know that your thoughts create your thing. So go do something, like take control of some thoughts this week as you find one that is unhelpful and say, nope. I'm going to think in this new direction of it. Either I'm going to find a positive direction of this unhelpful thought, or I'm going to set this unhelpful thought aside and just think of something that's helpful to me in that moment. Like, do it on purpose and come back and let us know how your experiment of it. And look, some of y'all been around Unity longer than me. Still experiment with this principle this week and see what new way you might be able to use it, because you are more powerful than you've ever fully existed. And so you've got new stuff to experience all the time. With that, I'm going to invite you to stand. If you'd like to hold hands, do so. If you'd rather not for any reason, I invite you to place your hands in the air. In fact, I invite you to maybe step in the circle and for any prayer requests you may have, if you want that, as we sing along to the peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And together let us affirm, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, love is, peace is, light is, God is, and all is well. Have a great week on purpose, everybody.